At our final Thanksgiving together, my brother raised his glass and said, "She'll try, but history doesn't remember the ones who almost." I smiled and carved the turkey. 70 years later, his grandchildren's degrees were stamped with scholarships that bore my name, a last, silent reminder that I had outlived not just him, but the very idea of him. I was 23 that Thanksgiving. It was my first time hosting and I wanted it to be perfect. My apartment in Columbus was small, but I'd cleaned every inch of it. I borrowed extra chairs from the neighbors, and even bought matching plates from a thrift store the week before. My mom came early to help me set up. She still called Wade, your brother, like he wasn't hers too. Wade was always the star. The firstborn. Star quarterback, full ride to Michigan, then an MBA paid for by our dad's company connections. I was the kid who got straight A's but never bragged. No scholarships, just loans and part-time jobs. When I said I wanted to start a nonprofit to help girls in tech, people smiled like I'd said I wanted to sell dream catchers for a living. Wade brought his wife and their 2 little boys. His wife, Harper, wore designer boots even though there was snow on the ground. She kissed my cheek and said the place looked cozy. Wade made himself at home on my couch like he'd paid the rent that month. He popped a beer and turned on the football game while I basted the turkey and tried not to feel small. Dinner went as smooth as it could. My green bean casserole didn't burn this year, and my mom even said the mashed potatoes were better than hers. We were halfway through the pie when Wade tapped his glass with a spoon. He stood, holding his wine like it was some royal goblet. "A toast," he said. "To family. And to effort." People smiled, raised their glasses. "And to my sister who tries." He looked straight at me. But history doesn't remember the ones who almost. Laughter. Not loud, but real. My mom gave a quiet "Wade." And Harper touched his arm like that would somehow make him stop being who he was. I smiled. I always smiled. I carved the turkey then, even though we were done eating. I needed something to do with my hands. I didn't say a word. He thought he was funny. Just another jab in a lifetime of jabs. He always laughed loudest at his own jokes. But something changed in me that night. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just knew right then I'd never let that man define how I'd be remembered. After Thanksgiving, I cut him off. Not in a dramatic way. No big fight. No "you're dead to me" speech. I just stopped calling. I didn't answer his texts. I skipped Christmas, blamed it on a bad cold. When Mom asked why I didn't come around, I told her I had too much on my plate. Which was true, because I threw myself into my work. I just started building my nonprofit small grants to young women going into computer science. I named it after my grandmother, a quiet woman who never finished high school but fixed radios better than the men who owned them. I worked nights and weekends, took consulting jobs I hated just to keep it afloat. I made deals with local colleges, built an app, networked like hell. It was slow, brutal, and quiet. But while I worked, Wade rose. He got promoted again. Then again. By 35, he was COO of some mid-level tech firm with a fake modern name and a logo that looked like a Wi-Fi symbol. He started giving TED-style talks at conferences about resilience and disrupting mediocrity. I'd watch those videos sometimes, just to remind myself who I was up against. His voice always sounded like he thought he was speaking to children. "I once told my sister," he said in one of them, "that history doesn't remember the ones who almost." And I meant it. He was using it as a life lesson now. A brand. My humiliation became his applause line. I wasn't angry anymore. Just focused. He thought I'd disappear. That I'd fade into the background. But I kept going. By my 40s, the nonprofit had grown beyond Ohio. We had donors in 20 states. We had alumni, real ones who were now coding for NASA, running their own startups, teaching in public schools. Wade's company tanked in 2008. He got pushed out quietly. No big headlines. He pivoted to writing business books that never made it past page 100 on Amazon. His kids grew up. They didn't go into tech. They weren't like him. One of them, Luke, reached out to me when he was in high school. Said he found my name on a list of scholarship founders. Asked if we could talk. I said yes. Luke was nothing like his dad. He was quiet. Smart. Listened more than he talked. When he showed up to our meeting at a coffee shop near OSU, He wore a wrinkled hoodie and held his resume like it was something shameful. He looked nervous, like he thought I still hated his family. "I don't expect anything," he said quickly. "I just wanted to learn more about what you do. I didn't know. I didn't know you built all this." I told him the truth, that I didn't do it for legacy. I did it to survive. He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. He ended up getting one of the scholarships, not because of his name, but because he worked 3 part-time jobs and wrote one of the most honest essays I'd ever read. He talked about pressure, about living under a shadow, not just his dad's but mine too, because by then, my name meant something. Quietly, steadily, people in education, especially those who worked with girls in STEM, they knew me. I'd spoken at panels, been invited to policy meetings. I'd said no to interviews. I didn't want attention. I wanted impact. Still, I kept one private folder on my desktop titled, Almost. Inside were screenshots of every smug quote Wade ever posted on LinkedIn. Every time he used that damn phrase about me in a speech. Every time he made my failure part of his narrative. When he got sick, no one told me. Not until it was late. Pancreatic cancer. Fast. Ugly. Mom called me crying. I drove to the hospital and stood outside his room for 10 minutes before I walked in. He was asleep. Pale. Smaller than I remembered. Machines beeped around him. Harper sat in the corner reading a magazine like she was at a dentist's office. She looked up at me and said, "He'll want to see you." I just said, "He already saw enough." I turned around and left. I never went back. At his funeral, they asked me to say something. I didn't. Instead, I left a donation card at the back of the church. One that said, "In memory of Wade from the one who almost." He was gone. Just like that. No big closing act. No apology. No late-night call where he said he was wrong. Wade died believing he'd won the story. But I had time. More than he did. The nonprofit grew. More schools. More grants. By the time I was 65, it had helped over 8,000 students. Girls from small towns. First-generation college kids. Some with no support, no safety nets. Just a dream and someone believing they were worth investing in. And I made sure of one thing. Every year we gave out a special scholarship, full ride, all expenses, top of the list. It was called the R. Maven Wade Legacy Grant. Named after me, yes. But also named to bury the one who once mocked me. I made the Wade part big. The rest louder. Because names carry weight. History remembers names. His children noticed. His grandchildren especially. By the time Luke's daughter applied to college, our foundation was a household name in certain circles. Her acceptance letter came with the stamp of a scholarship that bore mine. I didn't call them. I didn't gloat. But I knew. I had become the name remembered. Not him. And there's one more thing I've never said out loud. That Thanksgiving, when Wade toasted and humiliated me in front of our family, I made a silent vow. I would never have children. Not because I didn't want them, but because I didn't want anyone else growing up in his shadow. I would raise minds, not mouths. Legacies, not names. That was my choice. My revenge was cold, stretched over decades, and silent but not empty. In the end, he became a footnote in a line that honors me. And sometimes, I visit the college library where our foundation funded the whole tech wing. On the wall is a brass plaque. It reads, "In honor of R. Maven Wade, the one who didn't almost." And I smile. Because history remembers me,